Now, speaking of aged care, let's talk about the Royal Commission. It was released today. There are many thousands of pages. I can't give you all the details now, but I am joined now by Patricia Sparrow, who's the CEO of the Aged and Community Services Australia. Good to talk to you again, Patricia. Some of the headline findings of this Royal Commission won't surprise people who have been following the hearings, but they are very damning, aren't they? That 1 in 3 people in aged care are getting below par care. Anything up to 20% of people are being abused at some stage in aged care. Just how damning how shocked are you by what we've seen in the report?
Look, thanks for having me on this afternoon, Chris. It's a really important day today that the Royal Commission has finished its work and delivered the report. Obviously, those statistics are shocking for everybody. We understand and accept that there's been unacceptable care and that that's not good enough. And what we want to do as aged care providers is make sure that we address those issues, and that what's really important about the report now is that it's outlined fundamental reform, and that's what we need to see happen now. We want all older Australians to get great aged care. That's what we want to be able to deliver. That's what our members right across the country want to be able to do. So we're fully focused now on how we make sure that we implement the findings, we get the reform, and older people get the services that they need and deserve.
Sure. Now, government will be criticised for this, as they should be. This never should have got to this situation, but surely aged care providers have failed too. If 1 in 3 of the people in aged care are not getting adequate care, when do people in this sector actually put up their hand and say they've got it wrong?
Oh, I think we have been putting up our hand right through the Royal Commission, and I think what the Royal Commission has also shown is there have been failings of care, but there are so many systemic issues that need to be addressed, and I think that's what this report's showing. So we do need to stand up, and we will stand up, and we will do better. But this report's actually showing a whole range of systemic issues that need to be addressed, starting with new legislation that's human rights based, that we fully support. We need to put older people front and centre in everything that we do. We need to look at the design, the whole design of the system, how people find the services, how they get the services. We want to be able to employ more staff. We want to pay them better. We want them to be better trained.
I just want to come back to a couple of those points, because one of the impediments to doing the sorts of things you're talking about is funding. Of course, this is going to require an enormous injection of additional funds. Have you got a round figure in mind, and do we expect to see levies, taxes, government charges pick up most of that cost?
Well, I think the report, and like you, we're all still kind of reading all of the detail, doesn't sort of give a clear answer on that. But what it did do when the Royal Commission was meeting, they commissioned a report that actually showed that Australia spends 1.2% of its GDP on aged care, compared with the OECD average of 2.5%. So it does tell us that there's work to do there. And, while we want to see reform happen, as I said, it's got to be human rights. It's got to be all of that. We can't employ more staff, and we can't do some of those things if the resourcing for the system isn't right. And so that's where it's really important that we look at that as well.
Now, finally, there's been this split between the two Royal Commissioners, essentially characterised as one of the Royal Commissioners suggesting there should be a government, more government, more regulation and control from the federal government. The other approach from the other commissioner suggesting a new body outside government that can deal with the private sector and government agencies. Do you have a preferred model?
I think what they're not at odds about is the fact that there needs to be fundamental reform. So we're going to need to work through and understand the underpinnings of each of their recommendations. But what they're absolutely clear about in the report is now is the time for fundamental reform. So we need to now, as a community, as a government, as parliaments, and as you said rightly, us as providers need to come together now and work those things through and put in the best approach that's going to mean that at the end of the day, the older people that we all care about, and if we're lucky we've all got an older person in our lives that we love, we want to make sure that they get the best care, and that's what we need to do now as a government, as providers, as a community and as a country.
Patricia, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for your time.
Patricia Sparrow there from Aged and Community Services Australia. Now, we're going to hear a lot more about this in days and weeks and months to come. The Morrison government will need to outline a big response and a big package, but that ain't going to happen quickly. That's more likely to happen around a budget, I would imagine. So we'll keep on these issues from various angles in coming weeks.